and welcome to an episode of the Roll Wise podcast, the podcast where everyday gamers like ourselves talk about everyday gamer topics, whatever that means. Today, we thought we would talk a little bit and maybe revisit some of the 50th anniversary D&D stuff, since it seems like a whole slew of articles came out recently talking about what is Hasbro doing for D&D, and how can Hasbro be in trouble with the community about AI, and why did Larian and Hasbro break up? It was a very exciting week for these guys. So I thought we'd start. So first of all, we're gonna do a fancy trick, and we're gonna share our screen here. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about the swag that's coming out with the 50th anniversary stuff. Um, are you guys much swag people?
I'm always intrigued by swag. I don't know if the swag is always worth it, but yeah, I'd say it works on me.
Yeah.
It would take a lot for me to buy like shirts. I'll buy shirts, but I don't have a D&D shirt, but it would take a lot for me to buy think shoes you're talking about.
Yeah, we'll take a look at them. Maybe after you see the shoes, you'll change your mind.
Maybe.
Maybe. That's okay. So as people may have known, there was an article that came out, and I don't remember where this article was, but the article basically stated that like Hasbro was going to be releasing stuff 2 weeks earlier in the US. So there is reason to be excited if you're looking for like that Eve of Ruin stuff. But in addition to that, that's what kind of got me looking at other Hasbro news, specifically D&D, is that you got to see all the cool things that are coming out, kind of in concert with this 50th anniversary stuff. Now, the first thing that caught my eye, and also the first thing in this article, like you've seen it, was this mammoth dragon Lego set. That not only is it a dragon Lego set, but it is props for a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Here's a little bit of a better image of what it is. I don't know if you guys can see that there,
That's really cool looking.
but I think it looks pretty sweet.
That is cool.
Like I mean, if you look, you have a beholder in the corner. You have a dragon on top of what looks to be part of a castle or something like that. There's a lot of little cool details about it. But since we're not really war gamers and anything like that, I mean, I don't know if I'd actually use it to play the adventure, because I feel like it would just be me being playing over here with my Legos and you guys looking at me funny through the cameras because virtual. Is that what happened?
Yeah, probably.
I feel like in person, like one unruly player, and all of a sudden, all your work goes to shards.
Because it is 3,700 pieces of Legos.
No, that's really badass. That was designed by a Lego super fan.
Yeah. So as you can see here, here's the fan version of what they had.
Okay.
Cool green dragon kind of climbing down the ramparts, kind of looking at the image. Some adventurers down at the bottom going, "We're screwed." Oh, this guy is obviously very brave, the one that's going up to face the dragon. You can't see my cursor.
It's possible he might be chemical, on chemical enhancers and not.
No, he's the paladin.
He's the heroic one.
Yeah. He's the paladin going to smite the evil dragon.
Well, my guess is when they switched it from green to red, he wouldn't be running after the red dragon.
Yeah, he would.
The much more dangerous red dragon.
Unless the party hits him with something and wraps him in a rug, then yeah, he will probably be going after the evil green dragon or red dragon.
So, but kind of compare that to the one that they had put out. And what you see is that you actually see quite a few things here. I'm going to add my cursor to this so you can kind of see maybe where my cursor goes. No, you can't see it. That's too bad.
I can see it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah,
I don't think
the beholder.
It's a little magnifying glass, but I can see it.
Okay, but yeah, here's the alternative. I think they captured the spirit of it pretty much right away. I mean, do you prefer red or green dragons?
I think the dragon's neater looping around the castle than kind of standing there like a chicken.
It is neater looping around the castle, but dynamically that red dragon really pops where the green dragon was sort of blending into the background.
True. Mm-hmm. The color choices are definitely better. Right. The brighter colors on the gray are definitely
the other dragon is bigger though. It's super menacing.
The black background doesn't do that picture any service either though.
No, it doesn't. Let's not forget that. But yeah, they made some choices, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a dragon
that's-
on top of a castle. It's still pretty cool.
That green dragon assembly looped into the castle though is probably almost like that's probably really hard. So
For
they
your
probably
average person,
so they simplified it down for an average person to be able to build it.
less of an
probably.
art piece and more functional and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
No,
Although-
that's cool.
it's very cool. The castle's really cool.
Yeah. But this is so. What I think is really interesting here is you see the owl bear in the.
Oh, yep, that is
Oh,
on
I
there.
see that. I see that. I didn't see
Yeah.
that before.
I mean,
didn't
is
either.
the owl bear the unofficial mascot of D&D right now? Is that
I think it
Maybe.
just kind of is. I think it has been for a while.
just gained a lot of new attention with the movie and other things?
Sure.
Here are some of the characters.
Well,
Obviously,
the
D&D
characters are
skeletons.
always the cool part.
D&D skeletons, Beholder. That's pretty cool. I mean, some of these people must be the
Is
heroes.
that Blue Doctor Doom? And it looks like they repurposed that from a Fantastic Four set.
The Beholder's really cool. I like the
Beholder is
a
cool.
lot.
The Dragonborn Bard is kind of neat. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's what it is.
The Lego dragon head is pretty interesting too. That's what I think is interesting about that.
It wasn't
Yeah.
I like the Lego loot.
Mhm.
The loot is nice as well.
The loot, that's where you're going to be doing all of your damage. You know, you can be singing. And I mean, we really need to enforce that singing bit a little bit more.
Going to be a lot of looting in the game.
Yeah, when the boys were little, I mean, when we buy them Lego sets, they had to have guys because the boys carried them around, like
Mhm.
to school and stuff.
I was never a super big Lego person, oddly enough.
Well, now as an adult, you can get into these big $300 and up sets with several thousand pieces.
I play 40K, Jeff. Lego has nothing on me.
I don't know, man. We have a Lego store where I live, and so I go in there, and it's just
Intense.
like you could see as you walk into the Lego store, you just feel your bank account starting to drain just by looking at it. Because
I got a few friends really into Star Wars that have to budget to do the Lego releases.
Mhm.
You guys haven't looked at the pricing on 40K stuff recently, I can tell.
That's true.
I went on Temu and all this stuff is available from China for $1.75. If you want them to look like their faces all melted.
We are not a sponsor of Temu.
Are those myconids?
Yeah,
those are little mushroom guys, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you have the mushroom guy. You have a treasure
mimic?
chest of loot. You
The
have mushroom
gelatinous
people.
cube is very cool.
You have a gelatinous cube. You have a displacer beast. You have
They went all out. They didn't miss a lot, did they? They were not holding back.
Yep. And then so here's the gelatinous cube in what is that, in situ, where it's in the situation. Yeah.
I think it's cool. I mean it's
That is neat.
awesome that something like that is getting built, and the fact that they were able to get a adventure in the box.
Mhm.
It's just more exposure for the hobby.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm thrilled that the exposure is coming from Hasbro, but they are the biggest player in the field.
Yeah.
It
by
is something
far.
cool that Hasbro did that doesn't seem to have anything negative attached.
This looks like surprisingly a very good grid setup that they got through the Legos. I'm not gonna lie. All checkered and all that kind of stuff. But what they do say is that the book will be available to Lego insiders April 1st, or will it? April 1st is always such a weird release day for me. So available to Lego insiders from April 1st as a physical paperback or free digital download, and will be available on D&D Beyond alongside character sheets and digital dice.
Yeah.
So so you got your Beholder, Owlbear, you got your tavern scene. I mean, that's
where they're meeting. That's where they're meeting. Let's be honest.
That's how the adventure starts. You're in the
definitely
Drunken
100%.
Dragon Tavern, maybe.
100%.
It's a cool set. I think thumbs up. That's good news.
It is very neat. The mimic is neat.
Yeah,
I think the mimic is another unofficial mascot of
I think it
D&D
is
at this point.
Yeah, I've been, and I hate to say this, but as I'm the anime fan here, I've been watching a lot of an anime called Delicious in Dungeon on Netflix.
I watched the first episode. That was way better. I had heard good things, and it was better than the good things that I heard.
They lean into a very specific type of fantasy with it. And so like and I honestly think it's very creative. I'm caught up all the way to what they've shown up till this point.
Nice.
And I have to say that Delicious in Dungeon is one of those like things where they're like, okay, well this is actually a cooking show that takes place in a dungeon where you eat monsters. Like that's the whole it of it. And
No, it really was. It felt like I was watching a like YouTube foraging video. Like
yeah.
like people are going out to like urban foraging or foraging in the actual woods.
Yeah.
Finding edible plants and different stuff, and then
Yeah.
putting them together in a composed dish.
Well, what's interesting to me is like the way that they've thought about the bestiary of this world and how it could be used for foraging and eating and all that. It's actually really well developed, which surprises me and gives you some thought that you could say like, oh, this something like this would be easily transplantable to your fantasy world if you wanted to steal it wholesale. Not that we encourage stealing, but if you wanted to be inspired by the idea of
GM's inspired by anything they can
yeah,
consider.
if you want to borrow it and try to introduce it to your campaign, and if your players haven't ever heard of it before, then it's obviously a genius idea.
Yeah, they should. If any of the stuff that we've talked about on the show, it's got Mike's approval. I've only seen one episode, so I'll throw my approval behind it too.
I should
I
watch
don't
it
think
with
we'll
my
get.
wife. So,
So
my
it's
wife,
worth. I think it's worth seeing. I
yeah,
haven't watched more. I have a lot of things that I've started right now, and not a lot of things that I've finished lately.
true. Yeah, it's and honestly, I think they're actually getting to the point, and it's taken many episodes to get to the point. So, because you can, how many episodic cooking episodes can you have in an anime? Apparently, a full season, if you ask.
Apparently,
At least one, probably more than one.
So,
does that mean season 2 turns into a competition show where they have to make the best
Oh, that would
dish?
be pretty brilliant, really.
they have enough like cooking competition shows. Like the weirdest part about Japanese animation is that there's a fascination with like cooking, and like when cooking gets involved in the show, it becomes like a very prominent place in it. It's not just like they have cooking scenes where they're just like, oh, well, they're sitting down by the fire and eating rice. They're just like, oh, the fat balances really well with the acid, and I'm like, every episode is like a weird episode of Chopped.
The food stuff spoke to me.
Well, it is
so
where
that's enough said.
It is where Iron Chef started, so they were the first to have a competitive
That is true.
cooking show.
It's true. Yeah. So speaking of other things that they're releasing, they have the Dungeons and Dragons Converse crossover. And I think if you were to like look at my board as to possible brand crossovers with Dungeons and Dragons doing their 50th anniversary, I don't, now that I think about it, I don't know it was on my board, but it definitely wasn't Converse.
I don't know. Converse has been doing a lot of stuff with the Chuck Taylors.
Have they?
Yeah, where they've been cross promoting stuff because it's canvas. Like it's like printing on that. Like we've had that locked down for quite a while. Like
Right, yeah.
it's a pretty easy. Like they've just got to go. Do you want to have a shoe? Do you want it to be a signature Chuck Taylor shoe?
Yeah.
Do you want to look at like a 70s wizard van?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I want the wizard van.
There you go.
So this might be
Here's
for
your
you,
wizard van shoe.
because obviously this is
that is
the wizard,
the classic D&D cover wizard.
Yeah, let's go Chucks. All right.
Yeah, here, I can make that bigger. Obviously you have just the giant D&D logo.
The ampersand, the D&D ampersand.
And this is probably the worst picture of whatever they're trying to show here.
Yes, it's got to be more than just a
it's
hand.
got a
right?
skeleton hand.
Yep, and it says the dice taketh away.
Okay.
Oh, that's funny. But I mean, honestly, I guess if you're into this kind of apparel, that's kind of cool. Like
it also contains a hat, a sweatshirt, t-shirts, shorts.
Hey, I like the hat. Did you see the hat? Beware your dungeon master is smiling.
Yeah. You get your full gamut of gear.
Yeah. So there's your hat, there's your sweatshirt. Wow, this is a lot of gear. Converse All-Star.
I like that.
I like that.
I like that.
That's pretty cool.
I would wear that. That's dope.
And then there's your shorts.
That's the old school AD&D book cover, but that is a tougher hang for me in the shorts.
Yeah, it should be in the middle. It should be in the middle,
No.
right in the crotch.
It should not be. No, the placement is fine.
The bowl should be right there. Be right in the center, right
I don't
center.
know if I'm confident enough in my style sense
And
to
I
wear
hope it
that
says,
particular pair of
I
basketball shorts.
hope it says D and then the ampersand and D right across the ass. Like that would be
Kind of
the
like the
best.
Juicy brand or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That'd be amazing.
So it is because I mean because obviously it's 50 years of the
Yeah.
original of the game, not like 50 years of 5th edition or something like that. So it's like the inspiration that they can take from it. You can see in a lot of different
No, it's
a lot of
cool.
different
It's
places.
celebrating the history. I think it's neat. It's a tie-in that I don't actually hate. So
Yeah, it's interesting. It's
Yeah,
interesting, and it's definitely for like a fan is definitely going to be the person
oh
that
yeah, yeah. No, I bet the checks sell pretty good.
yeah.
yeah, and I do
Maybe
like the
not
fact
all of the styles. I don't know. Maybe they all will.
you never know. But I do like the fact that it comes in a box that obviously looks like it's a mimic. Come on, that's fun. That's fun.
The mimic box is pretty cool. Oh, there we go. There's
Um,
Mike. They said Vecna.
Yep. There's the Eve of Ruin. I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. I mean,
I
probably.
I have ruined.
Sorry, I have ruin. Apparently, I can't read.
I'm just hoping we
No,
didn't call it the Eve of Ruin the entire.
that's what it says on the book, though. I think they have a misprint.
They might.
They
The
might.
book says Eve of Ruin.
Yeah,
It does. It does. I read.
I was like, because all of a sudden
I didn't
was
read
like,
the title. I read the article title. Apparently,
yeah, no.
And
Apparently, somebody else
that's the
missed it
10 to
too.
20, right? That's the there's your end game
and they also
end
call
game
it Stranger
content.
Things in that little article. See, Vecna, Stranger Things.
Yeah, it is. It is Eve of Ruin, so it is a misprint on the website here. Because I was like, wait a minute, I'm pretty confident that it was Eve of Ruin just a
Well,
few minutes ago.
CNET screwing us.
Oh, geez, CNET, what are you doing to me, man? So we don't need to talk about that anymore. And of course, they have a sale, D&D adventure book sale, if you're into buying stuff on D&D Beyond. So what I think is interesting about that is that also Chris Cox, the Hasbro CEO, he found himself in a little bit of hot water, kind of related to the 50-year pedigree or history that I think Hasbro can really dig into for the games for like D&D and stuff like that. Because he was actually, and there's a website, VentureBeat. Probably people have heard of it. I don't know. But I was looking at one other thing, and just a few days ago, they released an interview that they had with him, and they were talking about kind of some of the like what does the future hold for Hasbro, because I think D&D has had a very crazy like people that are hypersensitive about generative AI and the creation of content related to Dungeons and Dragons. Would that be a fair statement, do you guys think?
I think there's a lot of sensitivity to AI
Mhm.
in anybody in any industry that publishes at all. The few people I know that are authors or that
Mhm.
work in comics, this is a huge topic, and it is. I think everybody should be hyper vigilant on AI right now. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
trying to be a doom and gloomer, but
no. I mean, especially in a sense that like Wizards of the Coast's like the product that they're presenting is like 75% art. So they need to employ a lot of artists. And the moment that they're like, oh, we could just do this without artists, it starts to be scary for people that make art. Like, what if they start making magic cards with purely generative AI art?
Mhm.
Like, which
Yeah.
like we were talking before stream, like they could now build a library of art and just pick from their own art that they paid for
Mhm.
and generate, you know, hundreds of generative pictures that no one really did anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's a concern.
Well, and I think if it like the interesting part about it is to me is that if they have a way of like if your generative art inspire if they're going to go with this generative art thing and you're the artist that inspires the generation of art and there's a way for you to make money or license your art to them on a like I don't know like a Getty Images type of deal. There I'm sure that there's a model that can be fair to the
But they
artist.
don't need to do that anymore because they paid for those pieces of art. Like they own
Well,
those pieces of art and produce them.
and that's true. Like that's my point is that I think that the artists don't have a path forward if they just go, "Oh, we already have 50 years of art, so you guys are obsolete.
Well, it's a slippery slope, and I don't know where generative art and AI art is going to get.
Yeah.
But in general, while I have seen some fairly impressive, amateur things done, in AI, I still don't know that feels like they have the heart and soul of an actual piece of art
Yeah.
Well,
created
it
by a
doesn't.
person.
It doesn't, but it's not going to matter.
Well,
To
exactly.
hopefully
I
to people it will, but to some
mean,
people, I'm imagining it won't.
yeah, exactly. Like
because
they're
does it not temper the expectations, right? Because if this becomes the new style of art, because honestly, like I looked at the fourth edition art and for the fourth edition book recently when we played the game, and I think I told you, Brent, I was like, I don't like the
I
book.
just
I don't
I
like the art in this
seriously
book at all.
I always hated the art in the fourth edition. Like that was probably one of the things that turned me off. Like th- they made some weird art decisions that I didn't enjoy.
They did, but at the same time, like I didn't like the art there, but did that stop people from playing fourth edition? No, it didn't. In fact, one of the comments that we received after we did the fourth edition, kind of post was that was one of the people that watches the video's favorite game. And I don't think that they're alone,
No,
so
no, people loved it, especially after
mm,
one of the other commenters said something about they did a lot to fix it.
yeah.
And but it was too late at that point. And I think
Do-
that's probably true. And I think for a certain person, like a certain gaming group and a certain
mhm.
style of play, I think it's probably a great game.
Yeah, and honestly, so what this kind of boiled down to, and I guess just to kind of give the skinny of it, is that is it okay for me? Like, so Cox basically envisioned a future where AI can generate content and game scenarios for their major IP.
Mine is the word that he used, I
Mi-
believe.
Well, no, they were going to mine it with the intent of generating it. I think that's
Right.
what I read.
Mine it for
Yeah,
information.
Yeah,
yeah. So
I didn't
they were
see
gonna
the quote. So
build their library, but then they were gonna use it to kind of produce content. And what's interesting is that they already did some experiments with the AI, and they actually did something with their Ouija board last year. I don't know if you heard anything about that, but they did a Trivial Pursuit with AI generated questions, and apparently, what they saw was a 30% increase in their board game sales related to that AI thing. And so I think that's what people are going to be fighting with. That's what artists are going to be fighting with, is because somebody somewhere that's counting the dollars and cents
Mhm.
goes, you put that AI thing out with Trivia Pursuit and it boosted our board games by 30%. Make it happen. Like,
Well, and the margin becomes smaller because you're not paying writers.
mhm,
It's like you just have this machine that's spitting out
hopefully correct facts.
maybe correct facts or full length adventures or
Yeah.
whatever. And you just don't have the overhead of playing like 10 writers or 5 writers.
Hmm.
So it becomes like like the cost analysis. It looks good from a company standpoint, but
Hmm.
like it rips all the heart out of everything. I think
Yeah.
that's the problem that people are dealing with.
Well, and I mean, the hard part is that like, and is it fair to use the word corpo speak? Um,
Yeah.
because like later in the interview, Cox basically talks about how they have to respect both the customers and the consumers because Wizards has faced a tremendous amount of backlash for things that have been perceived and or are generative AI. Because I think like there was like Big B's had AI art in it on accident that made its way through. There were a couple other instances, and then there was somebody who was an actual artist, and then they were called out because their art style was so similar
Was
to
similar to some
the
generative
generative.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like the worst part about AI, and people that really follow this stuff always say, like, well, today AI generative content is the worst it's going to ever be. Like, it shouldn't really do like a huge downslide to become really worse. It should kind of constantly improve, improve, improve. And that's what the scary part for me is that you really don't know
Yeah.
when
At
that
some point, you're just not going to be able to tell.
you're not going to be able to tell. So the fact that he was even so transparent about this, honestly, they could have done this behind the scenes, told nobody. Then we go all of a sudden in a year, we're like, oh man, I got this really great adventure. They've got this tool that helps, that's kind of like this neat little DMing tool that I can go on and do like solo gaming with, and it balances adventures really well, and it's very flexible. And then they're like, oh yeah, we did all this AI generative content thing, and you'd be like, whoa, what happened? Like,
Yeah, and by the time you read the fine print, they have your money.
yeah, they've already got your money, or you've already accepted it, you've already adopted it, and you're like, oh well. I mean, it's kind of like how Facebook is like what the evilest company in the world, but still has
Everybody uses it. Yeah.
still has everybody on it.
Well, one thing I will say is this is one of those things where I'm like, I'm the type of person that occasionally I will support Kickstarters and whatever because I
Mhm.
feel like they deserve to exist. And I think we probably I think people need to start doing that. Like, if you see a game that has any interest in you, even if you can only throw them $5,
Mhm.
support the artists, support the writers, because if this takes off and people aren't responsible with monitoring it,
Mhm.
big companies like a lot of, and that's the other thing is like a lot of tabletop companies couldn't do this, aren't going to be able to do this, so
Mhm.
they're not going to do it. Um, but Hasbro's big enough to where they can do it and probably navigate the waters enough to where the unpopular decision doesn't tank them so
Well,
far.
what's been proven throughout 2024, and this is what's or 2023 really is that 2023 was like, I mean, they had a lot going for them in 2023, and a lot went bad for them in 2023.
I would describe it like one of those cartoons where the guy's walking through the field of rakes
Oh,
and he just keeps stepping on them and
Yeah.
hitting them in the face. Like
They
I felt
should
like that was Wizards and Hasbro's for like the
all they
entire
had to
year.
do in 2023 was pave the way to get to 2024 and the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons and a new edition of the game. That's
yeah,
all they had to do.
And enjoy Baldur's Gate money.
And
yeah.
enjoy Baldur's Gate money and, some movie money. And all they did was continue to step on their own, we'll just say tongues. I was going to use a different anatomy part, but,
Yeah.
just over and over and over again, making a lot of decisions that show that, like they're the Boeing of the gaming industry. They started worrying only about stock price and profit, and the quality of their stuff is going downhill to the point where doors are flying off of planes in the middle of the air because they saved 37 cents on a fucking bolt.
Mhm.
That's the way that Hasbro seems like they're going. Like if they can do something to get 3% more profit and that gives them 4% or 5% higher stock price, they are going to do it. They're literally going to cut their own throats.
Well, and
That's just that you can't make these mistakes over and over and over and over and over
mhm.
again
Well,
without it being indicative of some higher
culture
up belief.
or
Yeah.
culture, yeah,
Yeah,
culture of the
Well,
company. Well,
it's
like
how they're running the company.
even the statement in this article that you have up, if you scroll up a little bit, even the statement in this article, like that's in quotes where it says content that we can mine with AI, like that is such a poor way to say that. Like whoever like
well, but that's the technology lingo, right? When you mine Bitcoin, you mine AI. I mean, that's just the data mining. That's the vernacular. But you're right.
then they
It's
shouldn't let him
insensitive to
talk. Like they shouldn't let him talk then if he's going to use lingo terms that are obviously going to piss people off. Because
well,
mining is the most insensitive way to talk about
strip
like
mining.
strip mining somebody else's work. Like he's talking about people that like spent hours writing this stuff and he's just casually like, well, we're just going to go in and mine all these good ideas out of it and then make stuff with a
We're gonna
computer.
make new stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna make new stuff and not pay
like
you anymore.
even off the top of my head, that's a pretty insensitive way to say it. Like,
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is you already see kind of like just because I mean that VentureBeat article wasn't very long ago, and Denman Rook, one of the artists that works in some capacity at Hasbro, and don't crucify me if I don't know all the artists because I don't keep in track of artists as much as I should. But they had basically mentioned that their stance on what it felt like, and I don't think that they're alone in that feeling. You
no,
know,
well, like I said, the other horrible thing is like it's not just that like now it's not just that you're selling them an art piece. You're selling them the ability to make more art pieces off of that art piece.
yeah,
Um,
use you to be inspired by.
yeah, you're selling them the ability, you're selling them basically the ability to say, we can buy 5 of your pieces of art and we can make an endless amount from your style of art.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we paid for it already.
it's
So
theft. Any derivative, I don't know how the contracts are written, but it
Well,
is
It's not theft right now, according to law, I don't think, because there's no laws regarding it. So
Well, and I think it just depends because I think this is one of those areas that as a non-lawyer who doesn't look at
Yeah,
yeah,
none of
contracts,
us
none
are
of us are
lawyers.
lawyers.
These are all
yeah,
opinions.
I mean, I would assume that when you sell your art to a company, you sell it under some commercial license where they can use it as they see fit,
Yep.
and I'm
You
sure that there's some
you have
some
license to
component.
reproduce it.
Yeah, and
Usually
so
when you
like,
sell a piece of art.
but then at the same time, also not being an artist in any real capacity because my wife does all the art that you can see and all that. Is that what happens when you are inspired by like what if you like the way this composition is, and then you have another artist that is
This
inspired
isn't
by it.
really inspiration, though. We're talking about
Yeah,
directly mimicking their
no,
style.
Yeah,
I,
no, this
I
is
I know, but I'm
yeah.
just saying is that it's such a muddy field that I mean I can't say how it's going to end up.
Yeah, I don't know what the copyright and intellectual property laws say.
Uh-huh.
But if you talk to an artist or an author or a writer of some kind, um, it isn't muddy at all for them.
Mhm.
It's direct theft of their style. Everything that makes them who they are as an artist,
Mhm.
somebody just trying to copy that and not add anything to that.
Yeah, and that's tricky. So, I mean, I doubt this is the last we'll hear about it, honestly, at
Oh,
the end of the day.
absolutely not.
Oh
But
no,
I
no, yeah.
but I thought I would cap this off with one other piece of news because it feels like on the scale, the 50th anniversary is getting some crazy, crazy news, and I thought this one was kind of um, a big one. And so over at Polygon, just today, because today is March 21st, there was an article that basically said Larian Studios won't be making any more Baldur's Gate games. And I mean, I don't know when that decision would have come to the Wizards of the Coast folks or anything like that. Maybe that's was a
But
precursor to the layoffs for the Baldur's Gate team
but
there.
does that doesn't look like by the title of that article, that doesn't sound like Wizards wanted to cut ties. It looks like Larian cut ties.
Well,
They just
according
said
to
we're not
this,
It
we're not
feels like
working with
whatever
you.
they negotiated, they were not on the same page.
Yeah.
yeah, and so Vinka said that Larian won't be working on any DLC expansions or sequels for the game. It would be handing the IP back to Wizards of the Coast and moving on to unrelated projects. To me, unrelated projects seems like a non-Wizards of the Coast
Yes,
project.
that's
Oh,
what it feels
100%.
like.
They'll be
Like,
producing other games.
yeah, and I mean, what's crazy to me is that there is a sense that like Baldur's Gate 3 was probably the highest point for Wizards of the Coast in the last year.
Last year, yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
like I can't. I mean, I don't think the movie did as well. I don't think there was any releases that were as well received. I mean, Baldur's Gate, like, I mean, it captured people's minds, captured people's hearts, it captured people's time. I mean, there was like oh my god, I spent hundreds of hours in Baldur's Gate. I mean, I spent like 100 hours in Act One just figuring out all the little places and things that you could do and the ways that you could play it. It was such an amazing game. So what does that
I
tell
haven't
you?
played it.
Yeah, I don't know what the original contract said. I haven't been able to find much, actual news on any sort of negotiations. I know there was some blurbs a couple of months ago about, Larian's. Do they have a parent company or a major
I think
investor that
they're
D and
tied
D
with
was
ByteDance or something like that, based on
okay?
what we had talked about before.
So
I
I
mean, I
think I
don't.
think D&D was or Hasbro was negotiating with them, and I
Mhm.
just think they weren't on the same page in terms of whatever the percentages of stuff were.
Yeah, and maybe I mean it seems like
That's still pretty
there's
amazing for a company to say we don't want to have anything to do with maybe the biggest game we've ever made. Like doing anything more with that. Like what else has Larian done?
a lot they've done. Oh shit, they've done a lot of the CRPG stuff. Did they do Tyranny?
But I mean, would you say this is the biggest game that they've ever done? Or
I'm going to go ahead and say Larian. This is probably Larian's most famous game because they're well regarded in this specific
exactly.
type of
Okay.
community. Because
So
they have Divinity Original Sin, they have obviously Baldur's Gate, they have I think a lot of the Divinity games that were theirs,
yeah,
but
but what I'm saying is like for them to take a property that they might be that they're best known for now and just say, yeah, we're not going to do anything more with that, that's kind of a big step. Like, that's a big step in the opposite direction. Whether or not, I mean, they came out first, so whatever rebuttal ever comes out, it's still going to be them saying that we walked away first. Whether that's true or not, I guess we can take that with a grain of sand. But that
Yeah,
still seems like a big step.
Yeah. Working on licensed games isn't always fun, right? Because somebody else has a certain amount of control over what you're trying to create because they own the intellectual property that you're basing it off of. So I'm not saying it's nothing. Larian did an amazing thing with Baldur's Gate 3, and whether it was, them being greedy or Hasbro being greedy or Hasbro made, the process wasn't as much fun behind the scenes as the critical success was after it was released. Who knows?
They did go on record as saying that no one that they worked with on Baldur's Gate is at Hasbro anymore. Which might be a factor too.
That could be. Sure.
It could be. I mean, because there is also, and I think you guys remember I had mentioned this, is I'm bringing up Exodus Become the Traveler, because it seems as though they were able to get some former veterans from like BioWare, 343, Electronic Arts, Naughty Dog, all that stuff, and they have this game in development. I mean, according to the game reveal and everything like that, I mean, it looks like a sci-fi game that has promise, maybe. I think there was only a little bit of information when I saw this a couple months ago, but it's got the sci-fi type setting that I enjoy and all those kind of things. So if you're interested in what this is going to be, I'm sure it's going to come out in the next while.
Man, with video games, it's hard to say.
And it's the design times, the lead times are so much longer than we think. You know what I mean? Like, video game companies usually have multiple teams working on different projects at different, stages, and like they may not have been able to fit Baldur's Gate into their calendar for another 5 years or so. You know what I mean? I have no idea.
So
there's a lot of unknowns here.
It's been decades since Baldur's Gate 2 and Baldur's Gate 3. So,
and the question is honestly, I think, I'm always a big fan of sci-fi games in the vein of Mass Effect and all of those kind of things. And I think if Wizards of the Coast basically bankrolled this studio, and you had if you had the right veterans from the studios that they have, this could be a really amazing game. The question is will it be as amazing as Baldur's Gate 3 and light that same fire? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Baldur's Gate has the advantage of D&D feels like home to a lot of people. And like, you're never going to get like, that's the thing about like intellectual properties is there's a sentimental, nostalgic feeling when you like recognize things in the world. Like that's why they use Forgotten Realms for a lot of their games, is because when you log in and you hear the name of somewhere that you've role played in Forgotten Realms, like it hits you in a way that's different.
Well, and I think that because they were so reverent of the source material and the fact that they worked so closely to bring it in, I think that was in their favor. I'll be honest.
It's like Cyberpunk Red. When you're playing Cyberpunk Red and you find something that was in the Edgerunners cartoon, or like a bit that relates to the Edgerunners cartoon, like it feels more meaningful because it's that was a weird slip.
I know.
It sucks.
Yeah, it's terrible. It feels more meaningful because it expands the world into something different. What I was actually thinking about when I said that was all the memes I've seen about Atom Smasher after you watch the show, and then you go fight Atom Smasher in the game, and you're just like, I have to get to the point where I can kill him because he killed everybody in the series. So spoiler alert for those of you who haven't watched an anime that's been out for 2 years now.
Yeah, I mean it does give you a lot more like drive to do that, and I think you're right. I mean, it just hits you different, especially for me. I grew up and I played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 back when I was a young tyke in high school. I think high school was about the age I came out in, and so this was a continuation of those. And because Baldur's Gate has had more games since Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, I think there was like Siege of Dragonspear or something like that, and I didn't find that it really did much for me, whereas Baldur's Gate 3 did. I think it's just they made the game good, you know, they actually gave it good, meaningful mechanics. And honestly, I think I said this before. If Baldur's Gate was the version of D&D that we were getting after this newest update, like that was the direction they went in, I think there'd be a lot of people that could mechanically play that.
Oh yeah, you mean like the video where I showed you where the guy's like, "Oh, I'll do this," and he's like, "Yeah, you can't do that."
Yeah, like I mean, I honestly think that there's a lot of people that go, "Oh, Baldur's Gate is a good rule set," and probably would make a fun D&D game. It's very active and interesting, but that's not what's coming out in one D&D. So
whatever they're going to call it.
needless to say, so I guess for news about Dungeons and Dragons World and WotC and Hasbro, there's a lot. I mean, I'm still kind of excited about the 50th anniversary stuff, but it does seem as though they still can't stop stepping in it. So, what are your guys' thoughts? You out there in the community, do you feel like, you know, can Hasbro do no wrong, or has your trust in them diminished to the point where maybe you won't be buying some of their 50th anniversary stuff?
Send us pictures of your Converse.
Yeah, send us pictures of your Converse too. I mean, if you buy them, how do they feel? Feel good? Do they look good? Let us know. But how would they let us know, Jeff? That's the question.
They would find us on social media. We are at Rollwise on Facebook, Threads, Twitter, and YouTube. Or you can just email us, rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And now it's my turn, right? And as always, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there. Bye,
Thanks.
everybody.
See you guys.